Alright everyone, we start off talking about the Al Smith dinner. It's like sort of a comedic roast hosted by the Catholic Conference, and typically both presidential candidates show up. For the first time since Walter Mondale, Kamala Harris, the Dem nominee, decided not to actually show up. She had like a pre-recorded ditty that, was kind of a non-entity, nobody really cares. Trump did show up though, and he did mostly a good job. Most of it was pretty funny. I did note that he went after Chuck Schumer, I think, more than anybody else in the room. And Schumer, he was doing like the closed body language thing. You could tell that he had to find a couple of the things said funny, but mostly he had like his poker face on, which he usually does. Pelosi was mentioned only once. Schumer was the butt of, I think, a dozen different jabs at different points. Kamala, of course, was brought up. There are two things that I think that Trump didn't do as well on. Number one was the self-deprecation portion, where he, semi-comedically in true Trump form says, well, I don't see anything to criticize myself about. I'm just lovely. I know that that's true to form for Trump, but you can drop a couple of self-deprecating jokes here and there. Certainly, that would have been funny. It would have been hysterical. I thought the part about taking shots at people, I thought that was probably the line of the night, that and some of the Schumer jokes. He also talked a lot about Eric Adams, and was talking about how the Biden administration is persecuting him. That sort of landed its target, and making an appeal to, the Catholic voters that are at the dinner and largely were watching it. I think he did overall a good job. There was the one other thing, though. Donald Trump has a little bit of a halting manner of speech sometimes. Like he'll trail off or something. A couple of his jokes landed with a thud. He did get booed at one point, and I found it funny when the legacy media on the side that doesn't like Trump, so the Salons and Voxes of the world, the Missing Link media on the left, MSNBC, when they were covering it, it's like Trump booed at the Al Smith comedy dinner. Well, yeah, at one specific point during a, I believe, 40-minute long speech, he praised his wife, he praised, the campaign in general, and it was very politic-y, but at the same time, at times it was quite funny. He got everyone in the room laughing at a couple of moments, notably in relation to Chuck Schumer jokes more than anything else. Again, Schumer, he starts off right at the beginning, and he's like sitting there more normally, and he sort of hunkers down over time. He's doing the poker face thing. I thought that was hilarious, although Schumer is, he's sort of a non-entity within Democratic politics. Pelosi is taught, she carries him around like a little lost puppy. Kamala and Tim Walz are the big ones. I thought the joke about Tim Walz and wives and husbands and their husbands' girlfriends or something like that, or the wives' boyfriends rather, in relation to Tim Walz was funny. I thought it was really funny that the legacy media and some of the liberal pundits didn't really get that joke because they're not up with meme culture. Kamala just the other night actually posting like, "Oh, I know the memes." What are you talking about? Kamala is the most unfunny person I can think of, actually. Well, I mean, Tim Walz can occasionally be funny. J.D. Vance is rather dour. He can occasionally, though, crack a joke. Trump, meanwhile, cracks one-liners for a living at this point, so I'm not surprised that his particular comedic capabilities are more advanced than those of his opponent. Overall, good. That there were things that he could have improved. He could have snapped more one-liners, and he probably should have self-deprecated at least a couple of times. You can talk about his McDonald's fixation or something like that. Well, I'm about to go and fry up fries. Normally, I'm just eating them, or something like that. It's not necessarily the most funny thing in the world, but it would be, it would be out of form. He could have gone out of his comfort zone just a couple of times just to show personability, and he didn't really do that. He also made an appeal more broadly and sweepingly to Catholic voters in general. That's probably the right thing to do at a Catholic-sponsored dinner. I liked how some people were upset because I guess Cardinal Dolan was there. I am not the biggest fan of Cardinal Dolan myself. That being said, it makes sense that as a relatively personable friend towards Trump, that he would have been invited to the Catholic dinner. He's a fucking cardinal. Trump probably extended the invitation personally for that slot. I thought overall it was good. But again, Trump, he has this manner of speaking in which it can be halting in some cases. Like, again, trailing off, that doesn't go over so poorly because in some cases it's like he just doesn't finish the sentence because people start laughing, so he's like, something like that. But then he'll pause in the middle of a sentence, and it doesn't always flow quite as well as it could. It's not as charismatic as it could be. That detracts from the joke's funniness, even when the joke itself is quite funny. Part of comedy is not about what you're saying, but it's about delivery. This is why Carlin was so popular. Even when, the jokes were funny. I find it hilarious most of the time. But even when the jokes weren't grade A quality, his carrying through, the way in which he moved his body, he would lurch around on stage and stuff and stalk back and forth, and the way in which he delivered it, the voice that he chose to use at different points in the joke, the flow, it was masterful. That's why he's a top-notch comedian. To his credit, for what credit we can give him, Bill Cosby was also very good at this. When he was active in comedy. I don't know, did he ever make his comedy return? Because he was saying that he wanted to return to stand-up, but I haven't seen hide nor hair of it, so I don't know. Maybe he's just not as popular because people don't want to go to his shows, because it's like, what did you do last night? I paid Bill Cosby money to see his stand-up routine. Then he rambled about women the whole time. I wonder why. That would be, in and of itself, a joke. Cosby should do self-deprecation humor, if anyone should. Probably make a mint off of it, by the way. That was my only main gripe. During the self-deprecation point, I'm like, okay, Trump's going to crack a couple of one-liners at his own expense. He never really got around to doing that. And the problem is, it was funny because he's being true to Trump form. But he still didn't really get any laughs from that. It didn't fall with a thud. It's just people like, just a little bit of a hee-hee overall. But that being said, when your opponent doesn't even bother to come, because she's quite clearly incapable of being funny, and would break down into cackling laughter probably at her own jokes, and everyone else would be like, what the hell is going on here? And quite clearly Trump carries more weight within religious voting blocks, generally speaking. It sort of makes sense that Kamala wouldn't show up. It just looks bad. You have to be humorless, very dour, and in order not to at least briefly roast Trump. She does it all the time on Twitter. Why can't she do it? She's got a script in front of her. It's not like they're not reading notes and rattling off the jokes. Why is Kamala not capable of doing that? Supposedly she's this great speaker, this great, funny, personable individual. The liberals tell me this all the time. Well, why didn't she show up? She could make inroads with the Catholic vote. Roast Trump, praise the Catholic Church, the Pope, ha ha ha, the Dennis Leary, I think it was, the Catholic religion was entirely based on the size of people's hats or something like that. She should have shown up. So Trump wins by default because he was actually there. He didn't need to deliver a grade A performance. I'd give him a B, honestly. Because again, the halting speech, the lack of the self-deprecation, a couple jokes did land with thuds, sort of detract a bit, but overall it was pretty funny. It was definitely worth watching. That's about all. Peace out.